we're coming into 8 months, 8-month mark of the manufactured war conflict of Ukraine and Russia. And why am I saying manufactured? Well, unlike what you're hearing on mainstream media, which is completely full of falsehoods and propaganda, if you look at the history and how this conflict started and the build up to the aggression, you understand how orchestrated this all really is. How 2014, the United States overthrew its democratically elected government of Ukraine to install a puppeteer government and align itself with neo-Nazis. How NATO and aligned countries have bordered itself across Russian borders. How it ignored the Minsk Accord to have a buffer between the West and the East. How the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was exploded by the United States and Joe Biden even confirmed it. There's a lot that played a role into this and built this aggression so that, to quote Adam Schiff, so we fight Russia over there and we don't have to fight Russia over here. Because the United States and Russia have wanted to butt heads with each other for the longest time, since probably the end of the Cold War. And it seems like it's going to get even more hostile. Just when you think things are starting to cool off and maybe there's chances of negotiation, chances of things cooling off, well, turns out the United States has different tactics. And we showed you this before, but I just want to show this again. Because Ukraine is aligning itself with NATO. It's aligning itself with the United States, aligning itself with the military empire, the war machine, and the intelligence community, because obviously you have a puppeteer government. They're going to listen to everything that the intelligence community is going to tell you, because the intelligence community is the ones that got you into power. And of course, the United States is adding fuel to the fire. They're not backing down. They're the ones that are telling Ukraine and other countries to not back down from this. And to the point of threatening them. And, you know, Russia wants to go to negotiation tables. Ukraine wants to get into possible negotiations with to end this catastrophe. But as Julian Assange points out, the reason we go into these wars like Afghanistan and like here we're seeing in Ukraine, the reason we're doing this is not for a winnable war. It's not for a resolution. We're in these wars to continue on building the war empire and the bloodshed and tyranny that's causing right now. And we just donated $1.1 billion extra to the already substantial amount that we have sent over and seized all financial assets all over to the war empire's regime of Ukraine. $1.1 billion. Gee, I wonder how much it would cost America. I wonder how much it would cost America if they took a smidge of that money and invested into, I don't know, fixing pipelines for clean water. Could you imagine how much it would cost the United States of America to fix all the water lines across the nation? I bet you it would be a small fraction of $1.1 billion. Tiny little amount that we can give people access to clean water in the United States. But no, we're going to send it over to another country. It's amazing that we have all this money to throw away at war. But when it comes to actual investments and helping people, we have to scrounge around. We have to invent new taxes. Oh, we don't have enough for it. And we've been doing this for 8 months. 8 months. And there's no backing down. Especially when you see something like this. And this is basically war propaganda 101 right here from CBS News. This is how you manufacture consent for more military occupation. And they say the U.S. Army's 101st Airborne is practicing for war with Russia just miles from Ukraine border. They're practicing for a war that's already happening. Think about how ridiculous that sounds. They're practicing for a war that's already being played out. The 101st Airborne, as opposed to the other 100 that are just, there for prequels. But they're practicing. They're practicing. They're gearing up to go to conflict with Russia, even though we're already in a war. There's already a war at play right now. But they're practicing for it. Like, it seems utterly ridiculous. That's like saying the Super Bowl, hey, Tom Brady isn't going to be able to play the Super Bowl because he's practicing a couple miles down. That's just unbelievably insane. And this goes to show you that really this conflict has nothing to do with Ukraine and Russia. It has more to do with the United States invoking and manufacturing aggression towards Russia so that it could be basically another substance of a Cold War. And the fact that we're talking about nuclear operations, we're talking about the possibility of nuclear Armageddon, as Joe Biden once pointed out, that we're going to have to worry about nuclear Armageddon. This is dangerous. And CBS News, ABC News, the legacy media, the mainstream media is just continuing to bombard us with, the pro-war propaganda. And this is on their morning show, by the way. This is their good morning show. That they're aligning themselves with pro-manufactured consent war grifting. This would be a perfect example of what war grifting is like for journalism. And if you think the headline is just bad, listen to the actual video. And again, I remind you, this is their morning broadcast where they're about to sound like cheerleaders for foreign intervention and how we're aligning and building even more aggression towards Russia. And not coming to a resolution, not coming with diplomacy, but just getting ready to attack and kill one another. Because that's apparently good for ratings over at CBS. Anyway, take a listen to this.
Start of the war in Ukraine back in February, the U.S. military has added an additional 20,000 troops to the European theater, taking the total there to around 100,000. And many of those troops are in Eastern Europe. Only on CBS Mornings, we are getting a look at the U.S. forces closest to the fighting in Ukraine, supporting NATO allies and sending a very clear message to Russia. Charlie D'Agata is in Romania for us this morning. Charlie, good morning.
Good morning, Tony. Romania is now home to the 101st Airborne Division. It's the first time it's been headquartered here in Europe in nearly 80 years. This is some of the equipment they brought from home, a 777 howitzer, ready to roll at any minute. They're specifically trained to deploy on any battlefield in the world within hours.
Go, 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 go.
Ready to fight. The reason one of America's most elite air assault divisions has been sent right here, right now.
Just the tone and the language, it's almost like listening to a Dodge Ram truck ad. Like, these guys are ready to fight. They're coming in blasting. They're storming in. They're getting ready for the aggression. They're Ram tough. This is a journalist. This is a news broadcast on morning television talking about how we're sending troops to add more fuel to the fire. To the fact that we're going against a superpower that also has nuclear weapons. The United States has nuclear weapons. Russia has nuclear weapons. And we're talking about nuclear Armageddon, and CBS News, instead of talking about diplomacy, détente, and the reason we're in this conflict in the first place, is adding fuel to the fire, saying, hey, we might go to a nuclear holocaust, but we got our boys ready. Let's go in and get them. Anyway, there's more.
We joined Deputy Commander Brigadier General John Lubis and Colonel Edwin Mathaidis, commander of the 2nd Brigade Combat Team, on board a Black Hawk helicopter. for an hour's chopper ride to the very edge of NATO territory, around 3 miles from the border with Ukraine. From the start of the war, Russia advanced from Crimea along the Black Sea to Kherson, aiming to capture port cities like Mykolaiv and Odessa to landlock Ukraine. We're right about here.
We're ready to defend every inch of NATO soil. Why is it necessary?
Did you hear what that guy had to say? We're there to defend every inch of NATO soil. Not every human being. Not the people of Ukraine. Not the people of Russia. Not even the people of Romania where they're in right now. It's not there to defend people. We're there to defend NATO territory. In other words, the reason that we're doing any of this is to defend NATO's capital, which is kind of the point of NATO. The reason we have this organization is not to protect people or anything for national security. The only reason we're doing this is to protect the capital. The capitalization of the war economy. That's why we have NATO. That's why these soldiers are being tricked and sent overseas to do a practice battle before they go align themselves with a nuclear superpower. It's there to protect the capital. They're not protecting people. They couldn't care less about Ukrainian citizens. They couldn't care less about people of Russia. They couldn't care less about anybody else. It's about protecting NATO. It's about protecting NATO's occupation. That's how you know you're dealing. This is classic 101 war baiting material. This is war propaganda to the bone on CBS mornings.
To have the 101st here. We bring a unique capability. We're a light infantry force, but again, we bring that mobility through our aircraft and our air assaults.
We skirt along the Black Sea coast as we head further north.
We're roughly 20 miles away from Snake Island, this contentious island that's been fought over between the Ukrainians and the Russians, currently under Ukrainian control.
So, they mentioned about Snake Island. That was the notorious island that people thought that Russian warships were coming over and Ukraine was fighting them down. And, you know, there was this tension between Russia and Ukraine. They were battling out to take ownership of this island. Well, here's the actual story. Russia took over Snake Island. They had occupation over it. And then they said, forget it. It wasn't worth their while. It isn't worth it to try to protect Crimea or the Donbass region where Ukrainian citizens that speak Russian and have Russian ties and culture want to be defended by Russia. There was no sense of protecting that and trying to go after Snake Island. There was no point to it. So they gave it to Ukraine. They gave the island over to Ukraine and said enough is enough. We'll give you this if we take Crimea. It's not an aggression where there was no battle. There was no battling out. Russia had it and they gave it up to protect Crimea. That's what happened. But again, war propagandists here at CBS want you to believe that there's still aggression. There's always going to be tension. There's always going to be fighting. We got to give somebody a reason to kill one another. We got to give some aggression out there. There's got to be something we can be angry about. So we send a boatload of money, all of our tax dollars, our federal reserves, all across all these different nations, funneling their money for this proxy war that was arbitrarily orchestrated by the United States and NATO and the CIA and the war empire. They have to give you a reason for it. They have to build the aggression. They have to make you afraid. They have to either fearmonger you or make you angry at someone. And right now they're trying to make you angry at Putin. They're trying to make you angry and fearmonger that Putin is going to take over and dominate all over the world. And he's this evil, nefarious person. And listen, I don't give any support for Putin. I don't give any, I criticize them as much as any other world leader. I don't give them, time of day. But this is crazy. This is utterly crazy. This is 100% 101 war propaganda on CBS mornings. And there's more.
At a forward operating site, we watched as U.S. soldiers and Romanian troops pounded targets in a joint ground and air assault. The tank rounds and artillery fire are real. So is the enemy, meant to recreate the fight against Russian forces in Ukraine. A message to Russia and NATO allies alike: we're here.
The real meaning.
And you wonder why countries like North Korea, you wonder why these countries that, seem so threatening with all their military power and their advancements and their weaponry and their security and their, aggression against the United States. Everybody's so concerned about that. But you ever stop to realize why they're building up their military power? Maybe it's because they're defending the country against stuff like this. The fact that the United States planted itself in a neighboring country and saying, we're coming. We're coming to get you. So, of course, Russia is going to do something about it. Of course, North Korea is going to build up its military. It's going to defend itself. That's kind of the point of the country and its military. Only the United States has never defended anything. It's always been the offense. Because the United States military occupies the entirety of the globe. There's over 1,000 military bases from the United States. Over 1,000 that we know of, that we can keep count of. We're the ones that are occupying and being the world's police and telling people, we're coming after you. We're coming after you if you don't comply to us.
For me, to have the American troops here is like if you were to have allies in Normandy before any enemy was there.
In all, roughly 4,700 soldiers of the 101st Screaming Eagles from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, have been deployed to reinforce NATO's eastern flank.
You've had an opportunity to watch, observe, and possibly study the Russians. What do you think of them so far?
So we're closely watching them. So we're building objectives to practice against that replicate exactly what's going on in Ukraine. We're the closest American unit to the fighting in Ukraine.
And what does that feel like? What does that mean?
It keeps us on our toes, right? So it makes my
Ready to fight tonight is a message that we've heard repeatedly. It's not just about defending NATO territory, but if the fight escalates and NATO partners are under threat, they're fully prepared to cross over into Ukrainian territory if ordered to do so. Back to you in the studio.
This literally sounds like a commercial. This literally sounds like a commercial to sell you the idea that American troops are going to invade a country. Like, they're ready. They're ready to attack. And when things go down, they are ready and they're going to come and they're going to come in full force. We're going to take it down. Ah! Ram tough. This has been sponsored by Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and Boeing and General Electric and Northrop Grumman. This is literally how they advertise a war. This is mainstream media in a nutshell. They don't tell you about a war. They advertise it because they have to sell you the idea of spending all your money, spending all the tax dollars, spending all the Federal Reserve, the budgeting, push it all towards military aggression. And then they have to sell you the idea that all that money that could have went to healthcare, education, jobs, fixing water pipelines, infrastructure, anything like that, anything to actually help the ordinary person, they have to sell you the idea of taking that all away so we can go fight in another country. So we can go manufacture aggression for a proxy war. They have to sell you that idea. So all this is advertising. All they're doing is advertising the idea that troops are over there and they're using their investments wisely because we're watching the Russians. We're ready. We're prepared. We're going to do something. Like, why does this guy just, do the Vince McMahon thing and go, "Are you ready to rumble?" Or what's The Rock say? I don't know. I don't watch any wrestling. I forget what Dwayne Johnson used to always, I remember seeing clips of him like starting a bat and going into the ring, and then he grabbed the microphone and he said something to start the wrestling. I don't know what it was, but this is just crazy. This is just utterly ridiculously crazy. And anyone with any common sense, anyone with actual critical thinking knowledge is probably looking at this and stepping back and realizing, wow, this is bad. This is not journalism. There's no information. There's no reporting on any of this. This is basically a televised advertisement. This is an infomercial for the war empire that CBS Morning put together. That, what's his face? Charlie something is trying to sell you. And saying that it literally sounds like a Ram truck commercial. And they're trying to sell you the idea that this is the best solution. Come on. All that money, all the billions of dollars that's wasted, the reason that you have high cost of living and inflation to the roof. Come on, this is the best thing for people. To see bloodshed and tyranny and our troops going overseas to a country they never even heard of, or the reason why we're not even there. Manufacturing a war. Yes! We're doing it. We're killing each other. We're slaughtering one another for capitalization of NATO and the global military empire. Yes! We're ready for action. This is utterly a joke. Is there more to this?
Studio.
Oh, boy. Charlie Daggett, of course, in Romania. 101st Airborne, they've deployed to every major conflict.
So there you go. There you go. And I love how even the journalist that's inside the studio, the anchor that's inside the studio, which I believe this is in New York, is even signed to the fact like, ugh, I can't believe I have to do this. I can't believe I have to say these words. I can't believe I have to do a story on this, but hey, my producers are telling me to do so because Lockheed Martin signs the paychecks. I mean, not literally. CBS obviously pays these people, but, who advertises on CBS? Lockheed Martin, Pfizer. That's why you have big pharma propaganda. That's why you have big military propaganda. That's why you have big oil propaganda. Now you understand how the system works. And that's why cable news and broadcast news and mainstream media is literally just such a joke. It's all infomercials. It is literally not there to inform. It's there for infotainment. Because what did you learn from this? What did you learn from this? That we're having troops in Romania to practice a war that's already happening. What exactly is the news story in this? What exactly have you learned from that news story? Nothing. Do you know why we're in this conflict? Do you understand why Ukraine is involved in this in the first place? Do you understand why Russia is fighting back? Do you even know what's happening? No. And they're never going to tell you what exactly is happening, because what exactly is happening is NATO aligning itself with the intelligence communities and military contractors to manufacture this war, to manufacture this aggression, because we wanted to go to war with Russia since the end of the Cold War. This is something we've had in our pocketbook for years, and we use Ukraine as a prong. This is a proxy war that we orchestrated right down to the teeth, right down to the bone. We were the ones that started this. And they're never, ever going to tell you, ever tell you how war starts. They're never going to tell you how these aggressions ever start, or why it's even happening, or a way to get out of it. But they're going to tell you to buy more weaponry, watch the news, get angry at Putin, get angry at the Russians, get angry at someone, so that we can send more money to the military-industrial complex, send more innocent people to go slaughter each other, and propagandize them and manipulate them to think that we're all bad people. And the people that are capitalizing off this can walk away and laugh at the bank. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. And you're never, ever going to hear what exactly is happening on what's happening with ordinary Ukrainians, what's happening with ordinary Russians, what's happening with people all over the world that are part of this global conflict that they don't even understand. They don't even have the context to fully understand what's happening. Because we can get mainstream media shills like this that don't report, that don't investigate, that don't tell you the actual truth. And you have to hear it from, comedians and YouTubers. People like Jeffrey Sachs who have come on and investigate and told the truth about this and get silenced out. Investigators, journalists that have been to the Donbass region and report on the ground with boots on the ground to figure out what's exactly happening over there are being silenced out by the European Union. That's what's happening right now. This is a global alliance of NATO, the intelligence communities, the people from UK, people from the United States, the European unions, everybody that's aligned with NATO, including here in Canada. We're aligned in this global conspiracy to use Ukraine as a proxy so we can manufacture aggression against Russia. And they're using this, the mainstream media, is there to sell you the idea. Sell you the idea of manufactured war. Because you have not learned a thing from watching this. This is not reporting. This is not journalism. This is just this is infotainment. This is an infomercial for Lockheed Martin. They should have just ended with a little tagline. Because you won't learn anything from mainstream media swindle. And that's why the war has continued on for 8 straight months. And the people that want peace and negotiations and just want an end to this so we can actually focus on humanity, focus on things that are happening right in our own backyard, they're the ones that get silenced out. They're the ones that get canceled. They're the ones that get, no coverage whatsoever. In fact, the only people I ever hear mention about ending the conflict and finding peace and negotiation is people like Tulsi Gabbard or Claire Daly or Mick Wallace of the Irish Parliament. Very few individuals that are willing to step up against this. Very few individuals. Even the people that say they're the most anti-war are the ones that are peddling the most for this. That's just how dangerous propaganda and manipulation can go at points like this. The people that were against the Iraq War and the Vietnam War and the Korean War and basically war in general have now done a complete 180 to support this. Just goes to show you what a global conspiracy this really is. And it's a deadly conspiracy.